Greetings gamers, my name is Anto, and over the last couple of months I've been diving into Pathfinder 2nd Edition and making a whole bunch of content around it, which I'm going to continue to do, so if you're new here make sure to subscribe. But today I'm going to be making my very first Pathfinder 2nd Edition character. Now this last weekend I played Weeby Gobbos from Pathfinder 1st Edition with a couple of friends, and in a couple of weeks time we're going to be playing a Pathfinder 2nd Edition port of Weeby Gobbos 2, so I am going to make my very first Pathfinder 2nd Edition character and get my first actual gameplay experience of Pathfinder 2nd Edition. I'm super excited for this, and I thought I'd take you through the process of making a character, show you what the process is, how difficult it is, maybe dispel some myths about the difficulty of making a character, and see what we come up with at the end. This video is sponsored by me and my Kickstarter, which is running right now. I'm going to talk more about that later, but for now, let's dive straight into it. Now the character that I'm going to be making for this one-shot is Poog the Kannibal Killer.
He's my homeboy, my rotten soldier. He's my sweet cheese, my good time boy.
This is one of the pre-generated goblins from Weeby Gobbos #1, and we're taking these characters and moving them through to level 3 and changing over to Pathfinder 2nd Edition. So we're going to be making a level 3 character today, and there was no way that I was going to be making my first character and not make a thaumaturge from the Dark Archive. This is one of the coolest classes in my opinion, and who knows when the next time as a forever GM I'm going to get the chance to be a player, so absolutely I'm being a thaumaturge. As we go through this process, I really want to know what your favourite class is, what class you would want to most play in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, so let me know down in the comments below. But for now, what we want to do is we want to fire up our character sheet, our core rulebook and the Dark Archive book and start building this character. So here we are in the core rulebook, we're in the character creation section. We're just going to go through this whole process. So step 1 is creating our concept. We've already got our broad concept. We've got this goblin thaumaturge that's a level 3 character and kind of graduated from our first one-shot. So don't have to worry about that too much, but we do need to focus on the ABCs, our ancestry, background and class. Ancestry and class are both taken care of. We're a goblin thaumaturge, but we will need to choose our feats and choose our ability scores and figure all of that stuff out as we go along. And then we're going to need to choose our background. So if we look on the ancestries page here and look at goblins are short, scrappy, energetic people who've spent millennia maligned and feared. Our ability boosts are dexterity and charisma and 1 free boost, and our ability flaws is wisdom. So we're going to go ahead and jump over to our character sheet and get started here. So the character's name is Poog the Kannibal Killer. And that is because at the end of our first one-shot, Poog was the one that delivered the killing blow to a notorious cannibal in the woods. So we're going to fill in all of our details here. Next we want to focus on our scores. So from our core rulebook, we know that goblins get dexterity and charisma. They get boosts to those, so we increase those from 10 to 12. So the next thing we want to do, we want to jump over to the goblin entry here in the core rulebook and check that out. So with our goblin, we get 6 hit points to start, so we want to make sure we're applying that. So let's jump back over to our character sheet and put 6 in our maximum. And we are small size, which we knew, 25 feet movement speed, dexterity and charisma and a free boost, and then the ability for wisdom, which we've added, and then common and goblin are our base language, and we've got the goblin and humanoid traits. And then we've also got dark vision, so we'll go ahead and add that onto our sheet. And then the next thing that we want to do is we want to figure out what we get for being a goblin. So goblin heritages, goblins, especially those of different tribes, have all sorts of physiological differences which they often discover only through hazardous experiments. Choose one of the following goblin heritages at first level. So we could have a Charhide goblin. You gain fire resistance equal to half of your level. You also recover from being on fire more easily. We can have the Iron Gut Goblin, who gets a +2 circumstance bonus on saving throws against afflictions, against gaining the sickened condition, and to remove the sickened condition. We get the Razor Tooth Goblin, who get an unarmed strike that deals 1d6 piercing damage, and your jaws are in the brawling group and have the finesse and unarmed traits. We have a Snow Goblin who gets cold resistance, or we get the Unbreakable Goblin who gets 10 hit points from the Ancestry instead of 6, and when you fall, reduce the number of damage you take as though you'd fallen half the distance. I'm going to take the Unbreakable Goblin for that extra boost of hit points from right up top, because I feel like having a bump in our defenses is going to be really helpful. So we're going to go ahead and jump that to 10, and we will make a note that we are an unbreakable goblin. So our heritage is unbreakable. And I'm just going to make a note that that's 10 HP at level 1, because otherwise at some point in the future I'm going to forget how I got to the HP value that I got. And then we come to Ancestry feats. So as your Ancestry, as a goblin, you get to choose from the goblin Ancestry feats as you go up different levels. So at level 1, we're going to get to choose one of our level 1 Ancestry feats. If we made it to level 5, we'd get to choose either the level 5 or another one of the level 1 feats. So for our first level goblin feat, I'm going to go ahead and take the Goblin Scuttle feat. It means anytime an ally ends their action adjacent to you, you can use your reaction to take a step and get a little bit more maneuverability. So we're going to go ahead and add that here to our level 1 feat. So that's Goblin Scuttle. And that'll really help us keep our position in combat, get those important flanks more easily, and just hopefully be able to be a little bit more efficient in combat. So now that we have put everything we need to about our ancestry, it's time to pick our background. So we're going to jump straight into the backgrounds section here, and you can see we've got a bunch of different options. Most of your backgrounds are going to give you 2 ability score boosts, and then they're going to give you some kind of skill option as well. They're going to train you in some kind of skill. It's important to note the way that you get your ability scores in Pathfinder 2nd edition is different to how it works in D&D 5e. So in D&D you either use the standard array, point by, or you roll the different rolling methods. The standard way that you get your scores in Pathfinder 2nd edition is everything starts at 10 and they are affected by your ancestry, your background, and your class, and each of those will give you boosts or penalties to different ability scores, and you level them up that way. If you're enjoying this and want to see more Pathfinder 2nd edition content, make sure to give the video a like so that I know that people are enjoying it and they want to see me make more. So I think because we're building a thaumaturge and I've got images of Van Helsing and Constantine and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, those kind of archetypes of fighting the otherworldly, I've got in my mind this detective style character. So we're going to choose the detective background, which gives us 2 ability boosts. One has to be intelligence or wisdom, and the other is a free ability boost. So we're going to go ahead and throw one of those in intelligence, because we've already got wisdom. Wisdom's kind of our dump stat, so we don't want to try and peel that back. We'll just lean into the other stats. So up our intelligence to 12, and we're going to use our free boost to give us a 14 charisma. Start building that key ability score. Because we've got an intelligence modifier, we are going to get access to some extra languages, but I'm going to do that later on in case we change our intelligence score again. The detective background also makes us trained in the society skill and the underworld lore skill, and we get the streetwise skill feat. So let's go ahead and make sure that we're trained in society and underworld lore. So we go ahead and click here for trained in society. That'll bump our society up, and then we're going to be trained in underworld lore, which bumps us up in our lore stat as well. This character sheet is one that calculates a lot of the maths for you, and I'll leave a link to it in the description below. I'll also show you how to build a character in Pathbuilder at the end of the video and show you how much that speeds the process up. But the reason I want to use the books for this is to show you the kind of complete way of doing it so that you understand all of the different elements. Then our background also gives us the streetwise feat. So we've jumped over to the feats section here. We can see streetwise. You know about life on the streets and feel the pulse of your local settlement. You can use your society modifier instead of your diplomacy modifier to gather information. In any settlement you frequent regularly, you can use the recall knowledge action with society to know the same sorts of information that you would discover with diplomacy to gather information. DC is usually significantly higher, but you know the information without spending time gathering it. If you fail to recall the information, you can still subsequently attempt to gather information normally. So that's just going to give us a little bit of an edge when it comes to figuring things out about our local area. I don't think that's going to come up a significant amount in a one-shot especially, but it's nice to have. This video is sponsored by my current Kickstarter for the SIDEQUEST Annual. SIDEQUEST is my monthly magazine that is filled with content to inspire both players and GMs alike, and I'm bundling the first 12 issues together into a hardback book and making them available in print for the very first time. The project is already funded and we're on the way to unlocking some stretch goals, so head to the link down in the description below to check it out. But for now, back to the video. So with our background chosen, it's time to move on to class. Now we already know we're going to play a thaumaturge, but if we look here, step 5, choosing a class. At this point, you need to decide your character's class. Class gives your character access to a suite of heroic abilities, determines how effectively they fight, and governs how easily they can shake off or avoid certain harmful effects. Each is fully detailed in chapter 3, but the summaries on page 22 to 23 provide an overview of each and tell you what ability scores are important when playing that class. You don't need to write down all your character's class features yet, you simply need to know which class features you want to play and determine your ability scores that will be important for your character. So jumping over to the Dark Archive, here we have the Thaumaturge. And right up top you can see that our key ability is Charisma, and at first level we get an ability boost to Charisma. So if we go into our character sheet here, that's going to take us from a 14 up to a 16 and bump our modifier up to 3. And then we can see we get 8 plus our constitution modifier in terms of hit points. Now to do that, we need to know what our ability scores are. So before we go any further, I'm just going to finish off the ability scores. To do that, we jump over to the rulebook. We can see that once we've applied everything from our ancestry, background and class, those ABCs, we apply 4 more abilities boosts to your character's ability scores, choosing a different ability score for each and increasing that score by 2. So let's jump over here, and we're going to start off, we're going to increase our strength, we're going to increase our dexterity, we're going to increase our constitution, and then we're also going to increase our charisma one more time up to 18, so we really get the most out of that. That means we have our final ability scores and modifiers, and we can use that to build out the rest of our character. So here where we have hit points, we got 8 plus your con modifier, so our con modifier is 2, so that gives us an extra 10, which gives us 20 hit points at first level. And then you can see here it says you increase your maximum number of HP by this number at first level and every level thereafter. So we are playing a level 3 character in this particular one shot, so we've got another 2 levels, so that's going to up our HP maximum to 40. Next we need to figure out what our proficiencies are with this class. So at first level you gain the listed proficiency ranks in the following statistics. You are untrained in anything not listed unless you gain a better proficiency rank in some other way. That's pretty standard across the board. So we are an expert in perception, so we're going to go ahead here and click expert for perception. That'll give us our +4 for perception. Then our saving throws, we're expert in fortitude, trained in reflex, and expert in will. And then in skills, we're trained in arcana, nature, occultism, and religion. So let's go ahead and click them off. So we are trained in arcana, we are trained in occultism, we are trained in religion, and we are trained in nature. Then we're trained in a number of additional skills equal to 3 plus your intelligence modifier. So let's go ahead, our intelligence modifier is 1, so we get 4 more skills. So let's have a look and see what we want to be those 4 more skills that we're trained in. So we're already trained in society. I'm going to train us in stealth because it's always handy to not be the weakest link when it comes to a stealth check. Then we want to train either acrobatics or athletics. They're used in a lot of different things and they can come in really handy. We've already got a higher acrobatics, so we'll train ourselves in that, boost that number up even more. Then we've got 2 more options. So for these 2 options, I'm going to focus on either charisma based things or something that I'm already getting a decent boost for, because we want to get those numbers high so that we are the better option for those things within the party. So I'm going to say we're going to go diplomacy as being trained, bump that up, and then probably intimidation. I like the idea of being this kind of intimidating monster hunter. Then when we go to our attacks, we are trained in simple, martial, and unarmed attacks. So we can go ahead and have a look at those. So simple, martial, and then unarmed. Next down the line we have defenses. We're trained in light armor, medium armor, and unarmored defense. So we go up to where our armor is, so trained in unarmored, light, and medium. And finally, our class DC, we are trained in the Thaumaturge class DC, and this is our proficiency. So these numbers get added anytime we're doing something that involves these activities that we are proficient with. So looking at our Thaumaturge advancement table here, this is what we're going to be using to level our character up. So at level 1 we get our ancestry and background, our initial proficiencies, our esoteric lore, the first implement and esoterica, our implements empowerment and a Thaumaturge feat. Then at level 2 we get a skill feat and a Thaumaturge feat, and at level 3 we get general, feat, a lightning reflexes, and a skill increase. So let's go ahead and start off here and look and see what all of these things are. So at first level we gain esoteric lore. That allows us to use our charisma modifier on the esoteric lore skill. It allows us to recall knowledge on different haunts, curses, and creatures of any type, but we can't use it on anything else. So we're going to go ahead and jump into our skills and add esoteric lore, and we are trained in that, I believe. And then at level 3 we become an expert in it, so we'll go ahead and add expert. Now this keys off our charisma instead of our intelligence, so I'm just going to go ahead and add an item bonus here just to get our number up to what it should be. So our esoteric lore allows us to use our lore skill and our charisma modifier to recall knowledge on things, and that's going to be a big part of how our character operates, figuring out what the weaknesses of the creatures that we're facing are. So we've got a nice big chunky 11 at 3rd level for that. So at first level, as a thaumaturge, we're going to get 3 major things. The first is going to be our implement. That is the symbol through which we perform a lot of our abilities. We're going to get our exploit vulnerability action, which is going to allow us to figure out the weaknesses of our enemies and apply different things to be able to bypass those weaknesses and do extra damage, or to just kind of on the spot apply a little bit of extra damage to an individual target. And then we're going to get a thaumaturge feat. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to jump over to page 36 here in the Dark Archive and figure out what implement we're going to take. So each of these gives you slightly different options, and most of them either buff yourself or your allies or debuff your enemies. Now I want to make sure that I'm always of some use in combat, even if I'm not necessarily doing any damage. I want to make sure that I am contributing to the party overall. So I want to make sure that I'm choosing an implement that reflects that. Now I could go really basic and choose weapon and get essentially the attack of opportunity. That's always useful, and I do intend to be up front a lot of the time, but I think I'd rather choose something that's going to benefit the party as a whole rather than just do something for myself. So for that, I think I'm going to choose the amulet. That allows me to give my allies resistances to attacks and to damages by using a reaction, and it allows me to fully use that action economy by using that reaction to make sure that my allies are protected. And then to finish off at level 1 we need to choose a thaumaturge feat. So let's go ahead and have a look at our feats here and choose one of them. So for our thaumaturge feat, I think I'm going to take Divine Disharmony, which allows you to make an intimidation check against the enemy, and if you succeed you can make them either flat-footed until the end of your current turn or the end of your next turn, which is going to make it easier for you to hit them. Then all that's left is to go through and pick our level 2 and level 3 options. So level 2 we're going to get a skill feat and a thaumaturge feat, and level 3 we're going to get a general feat, lightning reflexes, and a skill increase. So I'm going to go ahead and finish that off now. So for my general feat I chose Die Hard to increase my dying number, which keeps you more survivable, makes it less likely that you're going to die. And then for my skill feat I chose multilingual, give me 2 extra languages with my intelligence modifier as well. That means when we start I'll be able to speak 5 different languages, common, goblin, and 3 others that I've yet to decide on. And then once all that is done, all that's left to do is choose the equipment. Now we're starting at level 3. I don't know exactly how the GM's going to give us our starting equipment, whether we're going to get specific items or whether we're going to get an amount of gold. So instead I'm just going to wait to finish off that starting equipment. But this is broadly what Poog the Kannibal Killer is going to look like as a goblin thaumaturge. So my focus for Poog in combat is really going to be to focus on the weaknesses of those enemies, using that recall knowledge to make sure that we can exploit their vulnerabilities, and then use my high intimidation to frighten the enemies and further debuff them, and then use my amulet to help myself and my allies resist the attacks of those enemies. I'm not too concerned with dealing all of the damage. I'm very much focused on being frontline support, so I'm going to choose the heaviest armor that I can, make sure I get that AC up, make sure I'm using my hit points to take some of the damage, using my amulet to increase my resistances, all the while making it easier for my friends to be able to kill the actual enemies. So to finish off, I'm going to show you an option to make building your characters even faster, and that is the Pathbuilder app. I'll leave a link to this down in the description below, but here you can see the web version of it, and it's basically like a D&D Beyond style character creator for Pathfinder. So we're going to go ahead and we're just going to jump straight in, and we're going to select all of the options that we've already chosen here. So our ancestry is going to be Goblin, our background is going to be Detective, our class is going to be Thaumaturge. Then we're going to go and set our abilities. So our ability boost is going to be, what did we go with? We went with Constitution, I believe. Then we went Intelligence, Charisma. Our class boost gave us Charisma. And then for our last ones, let's just make sure everything else lines up properly. Then our Heritage is going to be Goblin, Unbreakable Goblin. Our Ancestry feat, we decided to go with Goblin Scuttle. Our class feat, I believe we went with Divine Disharmony. Our implement is the Amulet. And then our class 2 feat was going to be, let's have a look here. Our class 2 feat is Esoteric Warden. Our skill feat at level 2 was Multilingual. Now at level 3, our skill increases, I believe, were Intimidation. We'd upped Intimidation from something else as well, so we'll have to have a look at that. We need to set our skills, that's why. Okay, so we were trained in Acrobatics. We were trained in Intimidation, trained in Diplomacy, and trained in Stealth. Then for our general feat, we chose Die Hard. Go ahead and hit level 3, and we are done. Like, it's that quick to build a character in Pathbuilder. Obviously we still need to add weapons and armor and things and check over a few things, but compared to building it in a PDF, it goes much quicker. So I'll leave a link to Pathbuilder down in the description below, so go ahead and check it out, and all of the SRD options there, so you can build a bunch of characters all the way through level 1 to 20 and see what it is like to build a Pathfinder character. If you're interested in how a Pathfinder 2nd edition character compares to a 5th edition character, I have an example of how the fighters in both systems compare right here. But until next time, happy gaming.